we got Lord of the Rings, why it remains undefeated from the Cozy Kino Show. Let me see.
I think we can all agree that popular, high-budget, blockbuster cinema has, for a while now, been on a downwards trajectory. Despite all the staggering budgets and huge stars, despite all the different ways we can watch this stuff nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, like the last movie that I went to go see in theaters, what was it? It was something recent. I don't remember which one it was. God dang it. But before that, I can't remember, to be honest. It's been like so many years since I've like gone to the theater. Even though like I think like the movie theater experience is like really good, essentially because like they got like the really good sound system in the theater. I mean that's pretty much it. um, Outside of having like a really banging sound system, there's not too much appeal to going to the movie theaters. It's a hit or miss whether or not the next big movie is gonna have some sort of like activist takes in it or whatever that are just completely contrived and forced into the story. Who knows? Because they don't show that shit in the commercials. So for that reason, I mean, I'll just wait till the reviews come out. I'll check it out on like whatever stream service that it comes out on, and yeah, that's just my 2 cents on it.
Something very fundamental seems to have gone missing. You know of what I speak. The heart, the soul, the passion. These elements that have defined epic storytelling from the Odyssey and Beowulf to Seven Samurai and Bridge on the River Kwai. Well, they're becoming harder and harder to find in the realm of cinema, lost in an ever-deepening sea of formulaic plots.
Well, I think this is one thing that a lot of movies, or just trying to make a movie, is the formulaic nature of it. Essentially, every story has already been told. Every song, in terms of music, has already been written. I guarantee if you listen to like a couple songs, there you could probably pick apart. If you listen to a song, you'll be like, oh, I remember this little part, but it was from that song. Or if you listen to like the intro or the breakdown, you could 100% relate it to like another song that you've heard of, even though the two artists that made those two songs have like never heard of each other's music. It's the same thing with movies. Why do you think the hero's journey is like one of the tried and true forms of storytelling for movies? Everything has already been told.
Rushed CGI, low contrast, murky compositions, shot reverse shots on dull green screen backgrounds, drowning in intertextuality and references and cameos and quips, and
and don't forget the member berries. Don't forget the member berries.
Laziness. Nothing can be sincere anymore, nothing can be simply played straight. TV is now cinema, cinema is now TV, art, that's now content. Hey, that piece of content did pretty well. Let's make a sequel, and 3 spin-offs. You know what? Just make it a cinematic universe. Sure, independent art house cinema is still great. In fact, it's probably better than it's ever been. I feel like most year-end best films of the year lists these days are consistently carried by companies such as A24, alongside the small select group of reliable auteurs who are actually given enough creative freedom to make something original and interesting. But sometimes I just want to watch a well-made blockbuster which respects itself, which respects its audience, which is actually trying. Really?
Whatever happened to this type of formula? Oh, there's like a random fantasy book or sci-fi book that is really popular. It's selling a bunch of units. How about let's just try to recreate that book into a movie. Don't not read the book. Don't completely ignore the source material. Literally try to do a 1-to-1. How about that? Like Lord of the Rings is like the best example of book first turned into a movie, and it was so successful. Why is it all of my favorite IP brands are just dog shit now? Halo. I love Halo. I read some of the books. I played the games. Great story. The Paramount TV show, completely ass. Witcher. I played the games, read a book. Not a lot of books, but I read a book, the first book. It was great. The show, it wasn't bad. It didn't really like stay true to like the source material. It was, and like every subsequent season just got further and further. And yeah, now it's canceled. And there's a ton of other examples of this where people try to see a popular IP brand, they take it, don't read any of the source material, and just make up a story, banking on the audience's loyalty to that brand to just watch it and consume it and praise it just for the sake of being an IP brand. And then just hoping that they'll just shower it with good reviews. That is not the case. That is sorely not the case anymore.
Really, really hard. On a completely unrelated note, I just got done watching the entire 4K remastered extended editions of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy in the cinema.
Oh,
I'm
damn.
still not exactly sure.
Damn. If you actually did that, dude, bro, that's like a 12-hour day. What was that, like 4 hours a movie? And even within each movie, there's like intermissions. Is it not? Like, I like Lord of the Rings, but I don't like it enough to go fucking see it again in 4K in the theaters. Like, damn.
Why cinemas across the world decided to screen the Lord of the Rings extended editions back to back to back. I can't remember that ever happening before, but I'm not complaining. These are some of my favorite films of all
Shit, maybe
time,
I should.
and I of course slept
Oh, yeah. Wait.
at the opportunity to watch what I consider to be the
Bro, The Lord of the Rings is one of the first movies that I watched so much when they first came out, and I was like way younger. If I wanted to go to sleep, I could essentially just close my eyes, like leave the TV on, listen to the lines, and know exactly what the scenes are. That's awesome.
the definitive versions of these three masterpieces in the theatre. And yes, the experience was incredible, obviously. However, sitting in the same cinema where I usually watch contemporary movies really got me comparing Lord of the Rings to every other.
Okay, so I actually did a paper. Well, not a paper, but well, kind of a paper. I did like a little presentation on the best movie seats. And it's actually, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, like, let's say this is the screen and this is like the theater seating. Oh, shit. Son of a bitch. I'm just making this shit up. Okay. And then let's say this is stadium seating too. And then there's like a walkway right here. Well, some of the best seats are like right here. Either the first or the second row. Because if in any case, there's usually like a rail right here. So like you don't like fall over, so you can just stick your feet up on the rail. And you don't have to like look up. You don't have to like look down. Well, even up here, you don't even have to look down really. Like the best seats are right here, 100%. Bro, and to you know what's funny? There was one time, and it only took one time. I actually got like tickets for I forgot what movie, like right down here. It was the worst experience like imaginable. Like you have to like purposely like lean back, like look up and I was like, my neck hurt. I was like, Jesus Christ.
The epic blockbuster that comes out today, and I emerged from the cinema after finishing Return of the King with a few main questions. How on earth did they pull that off? And what the hell happened?
How'd they pull it off? Well, to start, everybody that was an actor or like had some sort of directing part, they had a copy of the book on hand. Everybody had a copy of the book on hand. Oh, we're doing this scene. It's on page 234, right there. You need to know your line. Look at that right there. That's your line. That's the intent.
We go from my brother, my captain, my king to somehow Palpatine returned.
Yeah. What a clown show. What a clown show of a movie.
Well, I have a few ideas. Adaptations are always going to be difficult, okay? Literature, cinema, they're just such different storytelling mediums, each with their...
Yes, but why is it that Lord of the Rings pulled it off? Huh? What, you can't take that same formula that Lord of the Rings did and just copy paste it to like another IP brand? Like, that's so hard and unfathomable.
Their own strengths and limitations. Of course, a ton of challenges are going to arise. What do you include? What do you leave out? How do you best capture the essence and soul of the original work while converting it to the big screen? And sure, there will always be those die-hard Tolkien purists who were disappointed by some of the changes Peter Jackson and co.
I mean, I get it, but that's like... that's probably like a very voracious, like, minority of the audience. Okay? Like, for the most part, he nailed most of these scenes, like, spot on, dude.
Made to the original source material, like for example the removal of Tom Bombadil, Glorfindel, and the entire scouring of the Shire, Frodo telling Sam to go home, the Witch King of Angmar breaking Gandalf's staff, as well as the character alterations to the likes of Gimli, Faramir, and Denethor, among others. However, I think that we can pretty much all agree that, for the most part, considering just how monumental and daunting of a task adapting Tolkien's original books is, especially when working within the constraints and expectations of a major studio, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy is incredibly respectful to what came before it. This becomes especially clear when watching the hours upon hours of behind-the-scenes footage from the trilogy, where you get to see just how much everyone loved and respected the source material, and just how committed they were to retaining the spirit of the books. I'll talk about this more later, but the crew's utter dedication and meticulous attention to detail is so evident when watching these movies. From the design of the costumes, to the construction of the sets, to the authenticity of the dialogue, you can just tell how much everyone who worked on these three movies were completely immersed in Tolkien's world. Often reading...
And didn't they film these movies, like, back to back? Like, normally when you make, like, a one-off movie, it's like, everybody gets together for, like, 3-4 months, or however long it takes, maybe, like, 5 months in some cases, I don't know. They film everything, then everybody goes their separate ways, and then, you know, the editor and the director do their thing in post-production and whatnot, and then maybe you need to reshoot some scenes, and then you can kind of get some people back together, and then you go back to the drawing board. Well, not the drawing board, but then you go back to the editing room, and then director and editor bro, like, go back at it, you know? But for Lord of the Rings, these guys were just like, yep, we're gonna do this in one shot.
Reading the books on set and constantly consulting with Tolkien experts to ensure that they honoured the source material. There's this great quote from Peter Jackson, which I won't include here because I'll probably get a copyright claim, but basically he's discussing how he didn't want to insert his own baggage, his own politics into the trilogy, because The Lord of the Rings is not his story.
Oh, really, Mr. Peter Jackson? You don't want to insert your own stuff into the story? By modern day standards, that's like against the law. It's like it's in the contract that you have to put your thoughts into a movie. That's the trend. I can't fathom a director not putting their own ideas and thoughts into a movie. That's crazy.
It's Tolkien's. And I think that's such a good mindset to have when it comes to adaptation, when it comes to following and respecting what came before. It's incredibly refreshing to hear, especially in 2024, a strange time in cinema where it kind of feels like many of the people behind some of the biggest franchises don't even really like or respect the source material
Oh,
they're
yeah.
drawing from. And this
Oh, yeah. What a clown show that most of these companies are like. All the companies that take all these IP brands and try to make their own thing, they all fall on their face. They fall flat, and then they roll around in the mud. They roll around in the shit, and they're like, "Oh God, why is this so horrible? Oh God, we just did it to ourselves." Like just look at Borderlands. I didn't even see the thing. I just look at the reviews. I look at the characters who got like cast for everything. I'm like, that's not Borderlands. I like Borderlands. I think I sunk like I don't know, maybe 1,000+ hours into Borderlands 2, and now they're gonna serve me that. That's not my Borderlands. I don't care if the main dude says it's canon or not. That's not my Borderlands.
is no more clear than in Star Wars, which I don't think is a franchise anyone on the internet has ever really spoken about before. But seriously, if I could attribute the failure of Disney's Star Wars to one thing, other than, capitalism, the drive to make as much money as possible, over taking your time and actually making something good, it would be that they still do not seem to understand nor have any interest in figuring out what made those first few films so good in the first place. But not only this, it seems as if they don't even like or respect what came before, which is kind of bizarre when you say it out loud, but that's the situation we find ourselves in. It is not a coincidence that the only well-received Disney Star Wars product, being Andor, Rogue One, and the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, are the only things which clearly respect and honor the original trilogy, while of course striking out and doing their own thing, trying something new. And I think this nicely links into my next point, which involves one of the best attributes the Lord of the Rings trilogy has, and something which is mostly missing from modern blockbusters.
Sincerity.
When I first watched The Lord of the Rings, or for that matter, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, there would often be moments where, I'll be honest, I straight up cringed, okay? I didn't understand what the filmmakers were doing. It all felt a bit too camp and over-emotional for me.
Bro, when I saw these movies and these guys got out of the cave crying, I was crying too. I'm a little kid. I don't have all this like adult mental baggage of like sarcasm and the irony and all this shit in my head as a little kid. All right? I see people crying because Gandalf just died and sacrificed himself so they could get out. I mean, shit. I'm like balling up right now. It's like, okay, they're crying. I'm gonna cry too. It's not cringe.
And it's funny looking back on it now, because I think what had happened is that I had just been so exposed to the post-ironic, cynical, self-aware storytelling which dominates cinema these days. But I did not recognize sincerity. Let's just take the ending of Fellowship, for example, when Frodo helps Sam onto the boat. I thought it was silly. I thought it was melodramatic. I was begging for someone to break the tension with some clever Joss Whedon quip. And looking back, I just want to slap myself in the face, because like I said, sincerity is one of the Lord of the Rings trilogy's best attributes. We need to get back to films like...
And it's not like Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, it's not like it was completely devoid of jokes. All right? There were jokes inside Lord of the Rings. Okay? I'll look at some of the banter between Legolas and Gimli. All right? They're going at each other's throat. Well, they're like doing little quips at each other, like little racist, like Elvish to Dwarvish jokes. Okay? There are jokes in Lord of the Rings. It's not 100% serious.
these which actually just play it straight. Now look, of course, there are jokes in these movies, but
Yeah.
they're never done cheaply. They never undercut a dramatic moment. I mean, the only example I can think of which even comes close to this is Pippin asking where they are going after the Fellowship is formed.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think it completely works because, first of all, the line is delivered at the very end of the scene, therefore not undermining any of the drama. And second of all, it's completely in line for his character and the arc he goes on of becoming a more mature person. And here's the thing, man, I'm not completely against this postmodern, self-aware style of storytelling. I think it's something people like Dan Harmon do very well, and obviously characters like Deadpool, it's the whole point of their character. I'm not saying everything needs to be played completely straight, but we definitely seem to have overcorrected in recent times, if that makes sense. I cannot tell you how refreshing it is to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy in 2024 and to be completely swept up in the emotions, and to not feel like a joke is being played on me, to not feel like every character in the film knows they are in a film, because it gets boring kind of quickly, you know, whereas the more sincere tone of Lord of the Rings, well, it's timeless. I mean, look at one of the most critically and commercially successful films of the past few years, Top Gun Maverick. Why did that movie do so well? Sure, it was well made, you know, Tom Cruise, you can't really go wrong there. But honestly, I think it's just because it was a good film which wore its heart on its sleeve, you know? It was genuine, candid, and to be fair, I do think these types of movies are coming back. We just had Furiosa.
Oh yeah, Mad Max. Yeah.
Last month, and Dune Part 2 earlier this year, which I will touch upon more in a bit, as I actually feel like it's this generation's answer to Lord of the Rings. I guess all I'm really saying is that I hope this sincerity can continue to spread back into films, perhaps even into the most mainstream corners of popular cinema. Which brings us to the final and most important reason as to why Lord of the Rings is still undefeated after all these years. It's an obvious one, but it has to be said.
Effort and passion.
Okay, so I wasn't exactly sure how to phrase this one, but it is basically the idea that seemingly every single person who worked on the Lord of the Rings trilogy cared immensely about the project. You know, they all fully bought into Peter Jackson's vision, put their heart and soul into whatever they were doing. But more than that, they actually went beyond what was expected of them, and it really shows in the final product. I cannot think of anywhere better to start in regards to this other than the music. Now look, Howard Shore, he could have, with some effort, composed a solid 8 out of 10 musical score for this trilogy. No one would have questioned it, the guy would have still received a ton of accolades and of course his paycheck. And I would be sat here right now saying, yeah, Howard Shore, he did a good job on those Hobbit movies. But no. Instead, he decided to compose what is, in my opinion, not just the greatest musical score in the history of film, but one of the best collections of music that you can listen to today. The absolute madman wrote around 130 leitmotifs for The Lord of the Rings. A leitmotif, if you didn't know, are those short melodies you hear in movies which are associated with a particular person, place, or idea. And pretty much...
I had no idea what a leitmotif was. I am not musically inclined at all.
All of the ones Howard Shore composed for this trilogy are incredible. There are more memorable tunes in The Lord of the Rings than any other franchise, but what makes them even better is just how well they're integrated into the films, how much they elevate certain moments. The classic example of this is the Fellowship theme, which we hear fragments of throughout the first half of the first movie, almost like Shore is teasing us, but it's only played in its full glory.
Oh yeah, what is it? What's like it's like the road goes ever on and on. It's like the road goes ever on and on down to the down it begun, or something like that.
Glory once the Fellowship is assembled, and it's what makes that scene of what is basically just 9 people walking past a rock feel so powerful. Another great example of this is the...
I mean, it's because it's what it represents, you know? They're taking the world's most powerful weapon, the Ring of Sauron, and they're trying to destroy it. And in that journey, there's going to be a ton of rocks you walk past. But it's somewhere like in the middle. You know, you're not at Mount Doom yet. You know it's coming. It's just not there yet. It's like they're getting there. It's building.
Rohan theme, which again, throughout the first maybe third of the Two Towers, is played on a single hardanger fiddle, conveying Rohan's despair and frailty. It is only when Gandalf frees King Theoden and he unsheaths his sword that we hear the theme in all its orchestral glory. Fun fact, this is one of my favourite scenes in film history. But there's just so many examples of this. I'd like to think there was a conversation where Peter Jackson was like, "Hey Howard man, how's it going? Yeah, we're doing this scene where some beacons are set on fire, basically. Can you come up with something? It doesn't need to be anything too crazy. I'm sure you must be very tired by now." Howard Shore was like, "Yeah, no problem, man. I'll send you over the MP3. And then Peter Jackson actually listened to it and just broke down crying because it was one of the greatest pieces of music he'd ever heard. And here's the thing. Howard Shore didn't just swoop in.
Oh yeah, this little scene where it's essentially transitioning from like landscape art to landscape art, but there's like a little flame pillar and it's just like taking your eyes from like the background to the foreground, and like the music that overlapped it's awesome, dude.
During post-production and smash out the score in a few months, as is often the case these days. No, the guy was involved from the very beginning, seeing the potential of the films and wanting to create something that would stand the test of time. Apparently he would constantly visit the sets, talking to the cast and crew, and of course reading the books while he composed. Almost like he was using Tolkien's writing as a reference, and you can really hear this when listening to the score.
Even the composer read the books.
You can feel the spirit of the books in every instrument, to the point where I personally will only read the books now while also listening to Shore's.
Bro, it's like if a new IP, well, not new IP, if some company wants to take up a popular IP and during some of the, like, I don't know, the interview questions, somebody asks, "Did you read the books? Did you play the games?" And anybody says, "No, we didn't." If they answer no, that's pretty much a wrap right there. That is the nail in the coffin for me from now on. That's it. Like, oh, you don't know shit about this IP that I am like mentally invested in. Oh, you didn't know? Okay. Then I don't really need to pay attention to whatever the fuck you're doing.
Musical score. It's become that essential to the Lord of the Rings experience. But here's the thing, man. Everything I've just said about Howard Shore, about his passion and belief and desire to exceed what was expected of him, well, it applies to basically everyone who worked on these movies, you know? I could tell you 100 more stories about so many different members of the cast and crew. From those two blokes who spent 2 whole years of their life just linking rings into chainmail, all the way up to the big man himself, Peter Jackson, who in the span of a few years basically went from a director of low-budget, gory horror comedy flicks to the spiritual successor to David Lean. I mean, these 3 movies are so epic in their scope and so well directed. Jackson with this trilogy essentially boils down 100 years of cinematography and camera techniques into 3 movies. It looks bold, it feels inventive, and Jackson strikes a really great balance between practical effects and CGI. Sure, some of the CGI is beginning to date a little, but it's never too jarring because it's usually only there to enhance the incredible practical effect.
You know how like video games will sometimes get like a remastered version for like updated graphics and shit? Do you think movies will ever get that? I mean, I like Star Wars kind of has, like with the original trilogy, like the VHS lightsabers were very like light, or just like damn near white almost. But now if you go back and it's like you go on like Disney Plus or something and watch the original trilogy, like everything is just like perfect high def blue, perfect high def red, perfect high def green. Where it's like, well, if you got the DVD, or not the DVDs, even the VHSs, it's completely different. So I don't know. Would Lord of the Rings benefit from like a remaster? I don't know.
which of course are never going to age. When you really think about it, it is truly remarkable just how competent everything about the Lord of the Rings trilogy is. There really isn't a weak link throughout the whole thing. There's no performance which is anything less than excellent. Of course, people like Ian McKellen and Bernard Hill, rest in peace, are gonna be amazing. But even someone like Orlando Bloom, who, I'll be honest, I don't think is the greatest actor of all time, even he gets it. Do you know what I mean? He understood the assignment. There were no shortcuts taken throughout this whole trilogy. There was no one on set who didn't take the project fully seriously because it was merely fantasy. And I feel like this universal brilliance which the Lord of the Rings trilogy has, when combined with the sheer respect it has to Tolkien's work, when combined with its pure and wholesome sincerity, well, it creates this true lightning in a bottle kind of feel. The kind of feeling you maybe only get once in a generation. Like I've already said, Dune is the only thing which I feel like has even come close to equaling The Lord of the Rings in terms of a high budget, really well executed, epic story with mainstream appeal. And once again, I think the reason that is that they managed to find the perfect guy to direct the project, someone who was actually passionate and knowledgeable about the original source material, and then they gave him the time and freedom to make something special. Of course, I understand that with all these studios, money is the most important thing. I'm not denying that, but it feels like with Lord of the Rings, and now with Dune, it wasn't the only thing that was on everyone's minds, and I feel like that's the environment you need to make something special. It's why stuff like The Hobbit and The Rings of Power and the Star Wars sequels and a million other things which have been released in the past 20 years just feel so hollow and empty. And look, there may come a time where even the bland, lifeless conveyor belt drivel we get today is seen as art compared to what came next. Or, on the other, more positive side of things, there may come a time where heartfelt, well-made, epic blockbusters come out all the time, where cinemas are filled with passion projects such as Dune or Lord of the Rings. But even if that day does come eventually, something tells me that the Lord of the Rings will always remain undefeated. It's just that good. Yeah.
I'm so happy that I got to grow up and see like the Lord of the Rings. Like there's people that are like 10, 11, 12 years old, 13, 14, 15, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, so on and so forth, and they still haven't seen Lord of the Rings. It's like, dang. Because like, you know how like with older video games, it's kind of hard to go back and play just because the graphics are like, Jesus, or like it's hard for like normal people, or not normal people, but like it's hard for people to go back and watch like black and white TV shows or black and white movies. Just because like color is like just such a normal thing now. It's like to think that there's like people that exist that haven't seen Lord of the Rings is kind of crazy.
Thanks for watching.
Dang. That was a good ass video, dude. 100%. I mean, shit, just watching this little video alone makes me want to like just go watch Lord of the Rings again. Man. But I mean, yeah, dude, the whole sincerity thing. Taking a story seriously versus just shoehorning in like comedy for the sake of the modern audience. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know if anything can beat Lord of the Rings. And it's not like it's a competition, all right? That's not what I'm saying. But, I mean, shit, I don't know. That's pretty much everything I got to say. Good job on the video, dude. It was awesome. And it makes me just want to go watch Lord of the Rings again. But, yeah, that's it for me. Yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one, all right? Later.